8:45 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lakshman Fonseca and read by Mario Vijayavardhana. The headlines. The President instructs all the district secretaries to coordinate the relief work with the help of the Disaster Management Centre. The President says that the debt restructuring talks will be successful. A climate secretariat is to be established in Sri Lanka. The Education Minister is now on an official visit to Russia. The Ministry of Agriculture allows private companies to import urea fertilizer. Uganda locks down 2 districts in a bid to check the spread of Ebola. President Ranil Wickremesinghe instructs all the district secretaries to coordinate the relief work with the help of the Disaster Management Centre for those affected by the prevailing weather. The President also directed the officials to provide all the necessary facilities, including food and medicines, to the affected people. He advised the officials to pay special attention to the sanitary facilities of the affected people. The President further instructed the district secretaries to work in coordination with all the other relevant officials to get the support of the armed forces in this relief program. The Disaster Management Centre said 3 people have been reported dead, 5 houses have been completely damaged, and 193 were partially damaged due to the prevailing weather. The Director General of the Disaster Management Centre, Major General Sudhanta Ranasinghe, says the public are advised to call the hotline 117 at any emergency situation. Once again, the public are advised to call the hotline 117 at any emergency situation. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that he is optimistic that the debt restructuring talks will be successful. He said that he had talks with the Chinese finance minister regarding the issue. He added, government officials from the finance ministry and the central bank held its first in-person meeting with the country's largest sovereign overseas bondholders in Washington on Thursday. Accordingly, the delegates have had talks with the IMF and delegates from China, India and Japan, the key countries with those who have provided loans to the island. Addressing a meeting in Siambadandua this evening, the President assured that his government is working hard to address the economic issue of the country. President Wickremesinghe had an observation visit to examine the food safety programs launched in the Mundragala district and also investigated about the progress of the agriculture in the area. Analysts say economic mismanagement and the hit from the COVID-19 pandemic have left the country battling its worst financial problems since independence. A climate secretariat will be established in Sri Lanka to seek and study weather risk situations. This was decided in a discussion held recently at the Presidential Secretariat under the leadership of President's Secretary Saman Ekanayake. The decision was taken as the island is facing vulnerability to climate change from time to time. At the meeting, it was decided to appoint the Deputy Leader of the United National Party, Ruwan Wijewardena, as the President's advisor on climate change. During this discussion, which was held with the participation of Sarah Jane Ahmed and Miniat Fabihah, both consultants of the Weather Risk Forum, the corresponding draft was presented to the President's Secretary. Discussions also focused on taking the initiative of the Ministry of Environment, identifying the potential of the irrigation, agricultural and other related fields contributing to national climate plans and their implementation. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The Education Minister Susil Premajayant is now on an official visit to Russia. The minister had met with Russia's Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak and had talks on bilateral interest. He also expressed his gratitude to the government of Russia for providing helping hands for the Sri Lankan people on many occasions. He also reminded the assistance provided by the government of Russia during the period of COVID. The delegation headed by the Education Minister will hold several rounds of preliminary discussions with high-ranking representatives of the country's government. The delegation is expected to discuss with the country's representatives regarding obtaining fuel, fertilizer, gas, loans and humanitarian aid. The Education Minister also dealt with the Russian authorities regarding the welfare activities of the Sri Lankan students who have their higher studies in Russian universities. The Ministry of Agriculture says that approval has been granted for the relevant private companies to import urea fertilizers required for the Maha season. The ministry said the tender submitted for purchasing 150,000 metric tons of urea, which is required for the Maha season, was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers recently. The Minister of Agriculture, Mahinda Amaraveera, said approval was given to the companies which submitted the tender. He said the required amounts of urea fertilizer for the Maha season will be received by Sri Lanka within the years 2022 and 2023.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that he is optimistic that the debt restructuring talks will be successful. He said that he had talks with the Chinese finance minister regarding the issue. He added, government officials from the finance ministry and the central bank held its first in-person meeting with the country's largest sovereign overseas bondholders in Washington on Thursday. Accordingly, the delegates have had talks with the IMF and delegates from China, India and Japan, the key countries who have provided loans to the island. Addressing a meeting in Siambanduwa this evening, the president assured that his government is working hard to address the economic issues of the country.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And now in Watchlight, parents request the Sri Lanka Transport Board to provide constant school bus services for their school-going children. They said many parents now opt to send their children to school by the SLTB school bus services due to economic issues. However, parents say sometimes the SLTB depots do not send any school buses on time or stop their services on some days. As many school children now go to school via the SLTB buses, providing an outstanding bus service is a must, they added.
World News, brought to you by courtesy of...
We give you the strength to rise higher and higher.
Never step back, but always march forward.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
In world news headlines, Uganda locks down 2 districts in a bid to check the spread of Ebola. And Master Tesla boss says SpaceX will keep funding Ukraine Starlink internet. Office time is not for video calls, says the boss of the messaging platform Slack. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has ordered an immediate lockdown and an imposition of a dusk till dawn curfew for 3 weeks in 2 districts in a bid to stop the spread of Ebola. Places of worship, markets, bars and entertainment will be closed, and restrictions have been placed on movement in and out of the 2 central districts of Mubende and Kasanda for 21 days. The Health Ministry said on Saturday that there have been 19 deaths and 58 confirmed cases of the often fatal viral hemorrhagic fever since the outbreak was first reported on the 20th of September. Authorities said the outbreak is concentrated in the 2 affected districts and has not reached Kampala, the capital of 1.5 million, despite a husband and wife testing positive there. Elon Musk says his rocket firm SpaceX will continue funding its Starlink internet service in Ukraine a day after he said it could no longer do so. He tweeted saying even though Starlink is still losing money and other companies are getting billions of taxpayers' dollars, we'll just keep funding Ukrainian governments for free. Starlink has been vital for Ukraine's military and people to stay online. Ukraine says it helped to reboot key infrastructure after Russian attacks. Energy installations were among facilities targeted by more than 100 Russian missiles this week. Starlink consists of thousands of satellites in low Earth orbit and ground terminals. Last month, Mr. Master Tesla boss and the world's richest man asked the Pentagon to fund the Starlink program instead of him, according to US media. Office time is not for video calls and the businesses should rethink the way staff use their time in offices, says the boss of the messaging platform Slack. He says, with the rise of hybrid working, lots of people now divide their working week between home and going into their workplace. But being in the office should be an opportunity to do things that cannot be done at home, argues Stuart Butterfield, Slack's chief executive. Sitting at a desk with headphones on is not one of them, he says. Slack, a leading messaging platform, has headquarters in the US, Canada, Japan, Australia and India. And now the main points of the world news segment once again. Uganda locks down 2 districts in a bid to check the spread of Ebola. And master Tesla boss SpaceX will keep funding Ukraine Starlink internet. Office time is not for video calls, says the boss of the messaging platform Slack.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of...
Amidst all challenges, we will rally around you and advance.
In the face of hardships, let's stand strong together.
Empowering you to reach greater heights. People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Minister Ramesh Pathirana stresses that actions will be taken to widen the opportunities given for investors while preserving natural resources. The minister further said a formal procedure will be implemented in order to provide maximum opportunities to investors. Value-added products are already being produced in order to enhance the export economy of the country. The minister added that steps have been taken to initiate local enterprises such as the cement factory in Kankasantarai, the chemicals factory in Palrandan, the salt and ceramic corporations too. That was Development News.
Sports News is brought to you by...
With many values that bind us beyond the transaction, we are Sampath Bank. We present your future.
In cricket news, Namibia stunned Asia Cup champion Sri Lanka by 55 runs in the opening match of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup 2022 in Geelong played today. Namibia ranked 14th in the world and Sri Lanka is in the 8th in the world. Having lost the toss, Namibia put into bat first. Namibia posted 163 for 7 in 20 overs. With 93 for 6 in 14.2 overs, Namibia were in deep trouble. Jan Frelenk and JJ Smith put on 70 run stands for the 7th wicket in just 34 balls. For Sri Lanka, Pramod Madhushan Lienagamage, Mahis Teeksana, Dushwanta Chamira, Chamika Kanaratne and Vanindu Hasaranga de Silva shared the spoils. Meanwhile, in boxing news, former heavyweight world champion Deontay Wilder knocked out Robert Helenius in the first round as the bronze bobber made a winning return to boxing in Brooklyn, New York. The American 36 was stepping into the ring for the first time since his second successive knockout defeat by Tyson Fury last October. He hit Finnish opponent Helenius flush in the face from his famous right hand with seconds left in the opening round.
A special interest rate of 15% on savings certificates opened in October. Prarthana for children, Prarthana Plus for adults. NSB Prarthana, your dreams realized.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The Sri Lanka Ports Authority SLPA won the Ports Authority of the Year award at the 2022 Global Port Forum Awards held in Dubai in the UAE recently. Business analysts said the appreciation in the global level is emphasized as a valuable point in marketing of the SLPA in the global and international maritime sector. They added, Global Ports Forum is committed to improve global ports and furthering the interests of the ports globally through collaborations among members of the ports ecosystem.
Business News, sponsored by...
When I grow up, I'll fly to the moon somehow.
Envision your future now. NSB Prarthana will show you the path to your dreams. This thrift month, open a savings certificate. It's a long-term investment on your future with great returns. A special interest rate of 15% on savings certificates opened in October. Prarthana for children, Prarthana Plus for adults. NSB Prarthana, your dreams realized.
Economic News, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
The Sri Lanka Economic Summit 2022 will be held under the theme Resetting from Turmoil to Opportunity on the 5th and the 6th of December at the Shangri-La in Colombo. The summit is annually organized by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce. The summit will focus on key levers that will lead to macroeconomic stability as well as ensure private sector-led growth to implement short and medium-term reforms. The Economic Summit will focus on domestic policies and the reform outlook for key state institutions, facilitating private sector-led growth and investment and meeting the targets of Sri Lanka's sustainable development goals.
LOLC Finance is taking the power of innovation to the next level, winning 5 golds at the Technovation Awards 2022, leading the digital revolution with cutting-edge interbanking digital payments. LOLC Finance claims the overall gold award whilst also claiming an extraordinary victory in digital banking. LOLC Finance will continue to innovate with the next generation digitalized